Figure it out.
Hello, this is Adam Koralik with Figure It Out Productions. The following video is part of our Quick Shoot series.
Okay, so you guys voted in a previous video and you guys didn't choose the Super Nintendo. That's fine. So we're going to do it right now. All I'm going to do with this thing is just clean it up and hopefully get it to work. Fortunately, it's not very yellow, which is awesome. In fact, I don't think it's yellow at all. It's just really, really dirty. You can see, like right there, there's a bunch of just crap on there, and the reset button kind of sticks, and it's just gross. So yeah, that's all we're going to do in this video. Clean this thing up. Okay, so we're going to take the Super Nintendo apart. So in order to open these things up, you need a game bit. This is a very specific type of screwdriver. You cannot buy this in a hardware store. You have to buy this online. This was the first system Nintendo started using these things for. I bought this screwdriver for about $4. Comes with 2 bits. They're magnetized, and that's how they just stick inside the screwdriver. Pretty awesome. Bigger bit used on the systems, and then there's a smaller bit that works on games. So like I said, you have to have one of these. And once you have it, you go to the bottom of the Super Nintendo. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 ports, and you just go ahead and unscrew them and take the top right off. Okay, so I've taken the 6 screws out. Now we remove the lid. Comes off just like that. And then we can see on the inside, and actually we can tell because it has this board here. This is actually an earlier model Super Nintendo, which is kind of cool that you don't really see early model Super Nintendos that haven't turned yellow yet very often, so that's pretty cool. So hopefully I can clean this up and make it look shiny and new again. So I'm going to start with the case there because, you know, for the same reason I did this with the N64, there's no electronics in this, so it'll be much easier to clean this up than the bottom part. So yeah, now I'm just going to have to go ahead and start disassembling the bottom of the Super Nintendo. But I'll warn you going in, there's a lot of little parts in a Super Nintendo. Look at all the things that need screws. So yeah, we'll just go ahead and start taking this apart. Okay, now I've got all the screws out. There's only one that's a little bit tricky. Right there, you'll see this little white washer. There's a screw holding that in place. Obviously, don't want to lose this washer. Then you can take out this piece right here, and beneath it, right there, there would be a screw, but I've already removed it, so remember that. Now, fortunately, all the screws are the exact same size, so you can put them back together in whatever place, and they'll all be fine. So that's awesome. Now, I'm going to warn you something. This is kind of the point of no return. If you go beyond this point, you're going to have to be committed to this, because there are a lot of little pieces in a Super Nintendo for some damn reason. And it's a little bit tricky to put it back together. I'm going to help you do that. But at this point, you can put it back together. It's okay, man. It's fine to give up. But for those who want to proceed, this is what you have to be aware of. This spring right here. The unit right there will not come out until that spring is gone. This is kind of the point of no return, because if you can't handle putting a spring back in, you're kind of done right here. It's hooked onto this piece of plastic right there, which is part of this mount. And then it's hooked onto a little white piece of plastic, which is part of the reset switch. So when you put it all back together, you're going to have to make sure to put that back in correctly. And it comes up just like that. You take the spring right out, and then you move on to the next part. Alright, I'm going to show you something completely optional while you have your Super Nintendo apart. I am not going to be doing this, but I will show you how, and you can do this yourself. Do you see these tabs back here? There's one right there, and one right there. If you have like a Dremel tool, or just like really good scissors, you could cut those out probably through the back here, and if you did that, then you'd be able to, once the thing is reassembled, fit Japanese Super Famicom games into the system, and they would work. So that just really removes the protection, which is limited simply by the plastic, so that you can play Japanese games on this console, which is a pretty cool little bonus. So if you have those tools, I say go ahead and do that. So now we're also going to take out the tray, which is kind of confusing at first. You just kind of pull back on it, and then it comes right out. And you'll see the little spring. I don't even know if you can see that. There's a little spring mechanism right there. Yeah, I see it on my middle finger there. That just goes into this little hole back there, and that's pretty much all that keeps this thing in place. I'm going to clean that up. And yeah, I'll take out these buttons here, which require kind of push. You see these little plastic parts there? You have to push in on all of those until they kind of just pop up. So I'm going to do that off camera. And then after those are out, these things should come right off. So I'll show it to you all stripped down. Okay, so that's all the pieces of just the lid. Okay, I haven't even done the bottom part yet, but like I said, the lid has no electronics, so we're just going to clean that part first. And you can see underneath the buttons, it's disgusting, just covered in soda and shit. Who knows what else that stuff is. Scott, what did you do with this thing? Scott, my cousin, who has me cleaning this for him. Man, I don't know what he did with it. He abused it. Going to clean all these little plastic pieces, and the buttons especially. But yeah, so I'm just going to go ahead and do that right now, and then I'll show you the results. But in order to do that, I'm just going to take them, and then just rub soap and water on them until they're nice and clean, and then I'll let them dry. I forgot to mention you can also remove 2 extra pieces of plastic here. If you go on the bottom right there, there's a little tab, another tab, push in on those, and this will come off right there. And then there's another one over here. If you lift up right underneath, well, there you go, I pushed it and it pops out. And then you have truly just a blank Super Nintendo lid, and then you have this, which you can see I've already started to clean up, but it still needs more work. Okay, so I've washed it all. It's drying right now, but just looking at the case, you can see it's way better. No more soda crap on there anymore. Yeah, so it all looks pretty good, and while it dries, I'm going to look at the board. You can see there's a lot of soda in there. It's clearly like just dried up, and it's just gross. Especially on the eject button there too. Clearly at some point Scott spilled soda in this thing, or his brother, or somebody did, I don't know. Okay, so here's the bottom. I already removed and cleaned the eject button. This is kind of the point of no return with this thing. The eject mechanism goes in here, it's like right there, and it's connected with this bar right here. And you pull it out, and then this comes out, and so does a little spring that's on the side there. Removing it is easy. Putting it back, kind of a bitch, so only do this if you are serious. But as you can see, I cleaned this up and it's looking a lot better. Although there's some stains I couldn't get rid of. I tried. But, so I'm not actually going to strip this thing down completely because I don't really think it needs it. It has some dirt in there, but there's nothing I can't go after with, like, compressed air and Q-tips and Windex and stuff, so I'm going to do that. Okay, so I've cleaned up inside there, and you can see there's no more soda stuff in there. And so it looks a lot better, and I just blew around compressed air and I got a bunch of hairs and just dust out of the thing. So internally it looks much, much better now. So I'm going to clean the cartridge slot, and to do that I'm going to use this. This is a cartridge cleaning tool. You need, for the Super Nintendo, this one's specifically designed for the Super Nintendo, so it'll fit right in that center part. And then the Super Nintendo has these little plastic pieces right there and right there that block it from going any further, and that way they had extra pins on the side there and there for other purposes. So I have a smaller one that I'll go in there with. Now most of you obviously won't have this. You'll have to do what's called the credit card method, where you take a credit card, wrap it in felt cloth, and then like spray Windex on it, which is also what I would put on this thing, and then just go in and out a few times until it's clean. Now the credit card method will work well for that center part. You'll have to be a little bit more creative for the sides. The sides aren't used for most games. I think they're really only used for games that use like the SP1 chip or the FX chip, like Star Fox and Super Mario Kart and so on. Most games didn't use those, so for the most part, just cleaning that center part will do the best for you. Okay, so I cleaned up the cartridge slot. Hopefully that'll have made the thing work. It really wasn't that dirty though, so I hope it's okay. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and put this thing back on for you. Because this, I'm telling you, this is kind of a bitch. So, yeah, this is the process required. I find the easiest method is to turn it upside down. You take the metal pole thing here with the 90-degree angle away from it, put it in like that under the teeth there, and then you'll end up having it look like this. Then you got to take the spring, and you got to find the shorter of the two sides. You see that in this case it's the one on the left, and then that one will go on underneath and up like that. Now the part that makes it hard is actually getting it back on. You have to kind of get in there like this. I got to pull the pole back a little bit and kind of go in by the cartridge slot. I try to line up the spring into the little hole down there for it, then put it in like that, and we're locked in place and we're all good. So I find that that's the easiest way to do it, and that's probably what they did back in the 90s when they actually built these things. So you start putting pieces of the Super Nintendo back on, and then you look at it and you see there's still some scuffs and dirt on there, and you're like, oh, why didn't soap and water get that out? Some of these things are just too much for soap and water, so in those instances you need Mr. Clean's Magic Eraser. This is like a foam stuff that you just kind of take and you just kind of brush over it. Now, I will warn you, this stuff is intense. When they say it's magic, they're pretty much not kidding. You can wipe off logos. Like if I would actually run that over the Super Nintendo, that logo would be gone. So be very, very careful with this stuff. It can get out some really good dirt, but it can also ruin things. So just be careful. Okay, I've gone ahead and put all the screws back in, and I put the spring back in its place. You can take a look at it, and you can see it cleaned up pretty well. So that's pretty awesome. You can see the reset button is nice and clicky. Power switch works. Power switch, this is actually an older model of the Super Nintendo, as I mentioned before, so they actually have this extra piece of plastic in here, so that when it's on, if you turn it on without a cartridge in it, you can't push down on that. Nintendo eventually cheaped out and removed that on later models like this one, and just replaced it with a sticker saying you shouldn't put games in there when the power's on. See, if I turn the power on this one, it doesn't do anything, because that plastic piece does not exist. So I did not know that until I disassembled this, but I guess that makes sense. But yeah, so like I said, cleaned up really well, so now I'm just going to go ahead and put it back on. Okay, so now I have the top back on, and as you can see, it looks way, way better. The reset button looks good, power switch, good, that's all good. But unfortunately the bottom is still dirty, obviously because I never cleaned the plastic on the bottom. I just didn't want to remove all the electronics because, well, if the top was that difficult, then the bottom was going to be even more complicated. And especially since the bottom isn't, filled with like soda and stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do like a spot cleaning. I'm going to spray some Windex on paper towels and just kind of rub certain spots. And anything that won't come off with that, I'll just use Mr. Clean's Magical Eraser. And I'll show you the end result right now. Okay, I got the little scuffs out and it's looking pretty good. But I think we can make it look a little bit better. We're going to make it shinier. We're going to try and restore it even more. I used to use WD-40 for this, but I don't do that anymore. Now I use Pledge, and this is what I'd recommend to everybody. But I will warn you, this the system's obviously gray, so putting that on there isn't going to make it look a whole lot different. Gray systems, white systems, they don't tend to change much, but if you do it on like a black system, then you'll really notice the difference. But just for the hell of it, we're going to do it anyway. So you take a paper towel, and you spray some on there, just like that, and then just wipe it down like so. And I'm gonna keep doing this off camera. I'll cover the rest of the top, the bottom, the sides, etc., and try to make it look just as shiny and new as I possibly can. And then once it dries, I'm gonna hook it up, and we're gonna see if this works. Okay, so I've got the Super Nintendo all hooked up. I'm using an RGB SCART to component converter because I'm a video quality whore. I have to get the best video quality out of these things. Again, I know I'm not even using a tripod right now. I'm totally aware of the irony. If you want to know more about using a RGB SCART to component adapter, let me know. To my European viewers, I know you guys know that that's like the best way to view any system prior to the Dreamcast. My fellow North Americans, Canadians, we never got this format, which really sucks because it's really, really awesome. Please don't ask me a bunch of questions on how to do that, though. Just if you want to see a video about it, let me know. I'm all too happy to do a video on that stuff at some point. But please, the subject of this video is cleaning a Super Nintendo, so stay on subject. But anyway, so it's all hooked up, and I've decided to take Super Mario All-Stars with Super Mario World, what I think is the definitive Super Nintendo game. Pop that in right there, and let's turn it on. Powers up. First try. First try. Great, and controller works. Yeah, this worked out very well. It might have worked before. My cousin Scott, who had me clean it for him, honestly didn't know if it was working. Definitely works now. So yeah, I hope you guys learned how to clean up a Super Nintendo, and thanks for watching.